My name is Bupe Mwanza. I'm a postdoc fellow at the University of Johannesburg, which is based in South Africa, Africa. Our paper is entitled Digital Platform for SME Enablement. This is the presentation outline, introduction and background, problem statement, aim and objective, literature review, methodology, results and discussion, and conclusion. Small, medium, and micro enterprises play an important role in job creation, driving global growth, meeting critical needs, and enabling innovation. Indeed, from a global perspective, SMEs are significant and present around 95% of all enterprises. Although SMEs present a large section of the market, many SMEs are facing significant challenges such as lack of resources, growth uncertainty, continuous changes in the market demand, and competition. In the context of these challenges that these SMEs are facing, they are not fully equipped to deliver financial and resource-intensive Industry 4.0 developments. They perform similar functions to larger businesses and, more importantly, can be clustered based on their functions. But you find that many SMEs perform similar activities or business function, but the benefit of implementing collective digital systems for SMEs has not been fully quantified. So this is the problem that this research is trying to address, to quantify the collective digital systems for SMEs. The study aims to develop an active framework in the form of system dynamics model to provide insights into the construction of an integrated set of systems for SMEs in enablement. A number of articles were reviewed. The focus of the review was to look at SMEs enablement in terms of what is happening in the small, medium, and micro enterprises when it comes to digital technologies and platforms. The use of modern tools for SMEs enablement as aligned to corporate digital models. This is where we looked at what are the existing digital models and business functions that are there in the corporate businesses, in the large businesses, and how can these be used by small SMEs to enable them get enabled. And we also looked at articles which have looked at SMEs that have implemented digital platforms. Then we looked at the existing digital platforms, and here we also looked at the traditional digital platforms, at the traditional technologies that were there, that have been existing, that are still existing, and we also looked at the existing digital platforms, and we found a number of them, such as those that have been developed by Apple, by Google, by Facebook. We looked at them and which SMEs are using them and how can they be beneficial from a system dynamics perspective. So looking at the collection of systems, because the study tried to look at the existing business functions that are there in the larger organization and how are these integrated in a larger organization, and how are the larger organization benefiting. So we tried to identify those business functions. So this diagram focuses on the various key aspects of a business, from logistics, finance, operations through to reporting and optimization, and ultimately business intelligence with or without artificial intelligence. So the primary objective in the integration of the businesses with a focus on process automation and integration. So we just looked at how these processes, how these functions have been integrated from artificial intelligence point of view. This is where we're looking at Industry 4.0 technologies. The methodology, basically, the initial approach included a comprehensive literature analysis to identify the key contributing factors to SME digitalization and corporate business models with a focus on systems. We focused on using the Scopus database for publication on small enterprises and systems and identified around 68,000 articles which were relevant to the topic that we are looking at. The articles were filtered and sorted based on the financial areas defined in the financial areas that have been presented in the previous slide. An extract of 2,000 of the most cited articles were extracted. In order to further screen the articles, we then reviewed according to the functions and systems with cross reference, either looking at information technology or operations technology, which further reduced the literature to 1,986 articles. Then to further reduce the to further look at the on how we can then narrow down the research and the articles that we are looking at, the focus was on the food and beverage SMEs in South Africa. So we focused on the constraints and drivers for small and medium enterprises in this sector, implementing systems via South African specific instruments in the food and beverage. So the frequency of the occurrence of the barriers and enablers from both the literature and the instruments were then statistically analyzed so that then we can be able to use the system dynamics model can then be constructed to represent a simulation of the businesses. So this is the methodology. We started from literature review until we narrowed down to analyze the most occurring words when we were looking at the barriers with specific to the food and beverage, and then a system dynamics model will be developed. So based on the results that were obtained from the keywords that were analyzed, these are the key extractions for business and small enterprises with additional keywords. We find that we were looking at planning, enterprise resource planning, supply chain management. So the keyword search determined the top 1,986 papers were used to create the database of the most cited paper. These papers were analyzed to identify the level of importance of each of the keywords. The presence of each of these keywords in the 1,968 papers was counted. And so when we looked at this, so the frequency of occurrence of each of these words was an indication of importance. We then used a formula, the weighting, which is in the paper. So the weighting for inputs into a system dynamics model was calculated based on the average of the cumulative. So the value above the average exceeds a weighting of 1, while the value below the average is below 1. So we use that formula to be able to determine the frequency. So the keywords presentation and calculation of the words. So based on the formula that was calculated, we find that these are the keywords and the weightings. So the system dynamics module of the business functions that contribute towards the success of large businesses. So then the development of the system model is based on the ability to deliver an improved operation performance of SMEs based on these keywords that we identify. So the inputs are separated according to the large businesses' best practices functions as part of the constructed system dynamics model. A key consideration for the model is the cluster of the functions that contribute to the large business. And in this case, we were looking at human resource, quality, logistics, operations, and maintenance. The database was then extracted. So this diagram is representing the system dynamics model for SME enablement based on the best practices of large organization and the existing functions that were isolated based on the frequency of occurrence from the computation that we did, which we used the formula which is existing. So this is just a presentation and it's showing us the global best practices of a system as from a larger organization, and then we're looking at it in terms of how would these then functions be used to enable an SME digital platforms and what will be the benefits. So using the VIN simulation software to model various scenarios, These were provided insights into the potential of system enablement on operational performance of an SME. So the baseline simulation is performed without any digital inputs or system, resulting in no change to platform development or operational performance of an SME. So the simulation is subsequently run with various changes in inputs from partial improvements to the global best practice. We've seen the underutilization of global best practices in there. So including full inclusion of global best practices and reinvestments on platform improvement by SME. The structure of the model allows for the development of SME platform and subsequent assessment of the impact of the platform and the sustainability of the SME platform. So based on those the software that was used, we find that the SME digital platform results from the simulation based on the different inputs that were used and operational performance. So these are the results that we have with us, showing us the different scenarios that we have been able to use. So the results of the simulation scenarios that we have presenting here. The graphs provide insights on operational performance and the SME's platform maturity. The results of the baseline simulation without the implementation of the global best practices has a neutral to the impact on SME, whereas development of just global best practices without SMEs strategically or financially investing in the platform delivers partial benefits. Furthermore, the most significant benefits are derived from the scenario of the implementation of global best practices combined with SME continuous strategic and financial investment in a digital platform. So there has to be continuous investment and financial investment in a digital platform for it to be able to provide the optimum result. That is through the implementation of the global best practices that were identified in large organized businesses. In conclusion, the results provide strategic insights into project implementation, including the potential of individual systems, maturity, collective system maturity, impacts to business, and also sustainability of SME investing in the framework. In terms of future work is suggested to further enhance the system dynamics model through incorporating empirical data gained from SMEs through employing a sustainable method such as quantitative survey instrument or through qualitative interviews. Thank you for listening.